Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football Podcast. I am Joe Devine and this podcast is supported by The Athletic. The Athletic is home to the best coverage of your club by a world-class team of writers, including many of your favourites from across the Premier League. Get reading now with your... indeed, Alex gestures at Michael over there. Get reading now with your 30-day free trial by visiting theathletic.co.uk/Tifo and getting 50% off if you sign up before the end of August. The Athletic, the new home of football writing and new home to Michael Cox, who is our guest today. Thank you so much for coming, Michael.
Thanks for inviting me, Joe. Cheers.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm pleased to have football back.
Yeah,
you know, a combination of the new job and just how you feel every summer. Like I get bored of the transfer stuff and the speculation and stuff, and just keen to watch matches. So yeah.
So you had a good weekend then, watching the football?
Yeah, I was at Bournemouth, Sheffield United on Saturday afternoon.
Cool. Okay.
So doing the 3:00 game means you can't really watch the other, the televised games properly.
Yeah.
And then obviously watched both Sunday games. So
great.
Yeah, a good weekend.
Okay. And Alex Stewart is here also. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
Did you watch the football?
No.
Okay. Well, that's a great start, isn't it?
Not when it went out. Retrospectively, I've watched some football.
Okay. Well, today's episode, we are answering various tactical questions that have been sent in by the viewers. We're delighted to have Michael here to help us with this. Michael, also, you have your new role at The Athletic, which has started in the last few weeks. How's that all going? Good?
Yeah, it's going good. It was
your pieces have been amazing, by the way. I've really, really enjoyed reading them.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it was cool. I mean, a few of us started kind of 3 weeks before launch date, so we had a few weeks to kind of get some good content up for the first week. But yeah, it's been really exciting to be part of, and hopefully, if people have logged on, they see that there's a slightly different type of story that has gone up. We tried to. Today's been interesting because it's been the first Premier League match day, and we're basically not doing match reports in their kind of traditional form. So it's been interesting to see how people have approached it from different ways. And, I guess I have a natural, that's what I've been doing before, doing the tactical analysis side of things rather than just a straight match report. But for other journalists to have the kind of freedom to do kind of quirky features, I think would be really interesting this season.
Hey, it's great. Okay, well, listen, the first question then goes directly to you, Michael. This is from Wandering Propeller. Wandering Propeller asks, are you ever going to return to updating zonal marking on a regular basis? I've always found the match analyses there were very insightful and top-notch, and Wandering Propeller has spelt analyses correctly as well, which I always think makes for an intelligent person.
Yeah, fair play. Probably not regularly.
Zonal Marking was your tactics blog, wasn't it? Is that where you started writing?
Yeah, so that's where it started, and... So I've done a couple of books. The second one came out in the summer, which is called Zonal Marking. So I think that's a good way to not end it, but leave it kind of hanging there. But with the stuff of The Athletic, I think it's going to be pretty much the kind of thing I was doing on Zonal Marking. Yeah. So probably won't be updating that much, but same kind of content elsewhere. Okay,
well, Wandering Propeller, you should go to www.theathletic.co.uk/Tifo. Take advantage of our it's not our very generous offer, it's The Athletic's very generous offer, and essentially read zonal marking there. Question number 2 is from R. Chambers. Do you think that the Jorginho role is very important for every 4-3-3 formation, even if that means you're sacrificing a central defensive midfielder role in the formation? Should we start with you, Michael, on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting debate. I mean, the thing with Chelsea last year was really interesting, I thought, with Jorginho playing there instead of Kante and Kante playing higher up. I realise this is kind of last season's debate now because it looks like Lampard's going to play with 2 players there. But it just depends on the feel of the side, I think. I mean, Chelsea was an interesting case because it was the first time really that they'd appointed a manager who was just committed to playing kind of possession football, front foot football. And for me, it's just obvious you had to play with Jorginho there because he's just so much more comfortable in possession. Not just his passing ability, but the way he receives the ball. I think that's the really crucial thing of a holding midfielder these days. If you're playing out from the back, a holding midfielder's got to be so comfortable receiving the ball with his back to play when he's being pressured. He's got to be able to get past the press. And Jorginho, I think, is really good at that. He maybe didn't get to the level at Chelsea as he was at Napoli, but I thought if you want to play that kind of football, you can't really have a player like Kante there. And Kante is very good on the ball, but he's good in a different way. And I think he's also he needs to be kind of playing a mobile role. And I thought that Sarri kind of found the right balance between them last season.
People were certain that it hadn't really worked out, though. What was your impression of Jorginho at Chelsea last season?
I mean, I think he took a while to settle in, and there were a couple of difficult games he had. I think that 6-0 at City was a really tough game for him.
Do you think he was targeted by opposition as well as a kind of key creative figure on the Chelsea team?
I think, yeah, there were a few games where he was pressed really heavily. I think West Ham did it very effectively. But I thought he was actually very unfortunate because he ended this... I mean, one, his job isn't to assist, really. It's to play the earlier passes. And he ended the season without any assists, which people kind of made a thing of. But when you look at his expected assist statistics, as some of us like to do, he should have ended with like 6 or 7 assists. And it was just the fact that Higuain was missing chances, Morata was missing chances, even Hazard and Giroud had some really good chances that were played from Jorginho that they fluffed, and that wasn't his fault. So yeah, I just think it depends on the feel of his side. But
do you think that's an example of this happens sometimes? I think in football where maybe the answer to a particular question is slightly more complex than it is presented to be initially, and then the narrative sort of takes over for the rest of the season, which in some cases you might think even could affect the players themselves if they're receiving that.
Yeah, and I think because Kante's so popular here, a lot of people were just confused to see him in a different position, but he had never really played as the kind of sole holding midfielder anyway. I mean, he did that for about 4 or 5 games for Conte when Conte first came to Chelsea, but then they moved away from that system and people had agreed that it hadn't really worked for him there. So it's interesting that Lampard looks like he's going to play with the 2. Obviously, Kante didn't play yesterday.
Yeah.
Played with Kovacic and Jorginho, which is like super technical, really. I thought Chelsea started really well against Manchester United. I was really impressed with them, but obviously Kante will come back in and...
A lot of space in the middle, wasn't there, for both teams?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the sides were quite disorganised, particularly Manchester United. I think it's the worst 4-0 win I've seen for a long time. But
I was thinking that about Liverpool in the first half against Norwich as well. Not quite as bad, but that it seemed bizarre that it had even made it to 4.
Well, actually, Liverpool's 4-0 against Barcelona was kind of like that for the first half as well.
Yeah.
But they scored the early goal, but then Barca had so many chances. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what Lampard does with Jorginho and Kante, because they are 2 very different players and 2 players I really like. And it looks like Jorginho will get a good run in the side. I was a little bit afraid that Lampard would almost look to move him on as a kind of symbolic thing. Like this was Sarri's guy.
Yeah.
He was the guy who was meant to epitomise the Sarri way. Didn't quite work out. Let's move him on to show that we're moving on.
Well, do you think maybe if there wasn't a transfer ban, he might have done that?
Maybe. It's tough to say, but yeah, it looks like he'll get a good run in the team, which is cool.
Okay, so do you think that every team needs to have a Jorginho role, the deeper spot there?
No, I'd agree with Michael in the sense that I think every team needs a Jorginho-style player if that is the type of football they want to play. If it's the idea of collecting from the back and then creating these kind of penetrative passes and moving it up, sort of press and possess style. I think the fact is that there are lots of different ways of playing a 4-3-3. And they don't have to rely on that player. And I think it's again this thing that we were talking about last week in terms of positions and roles. And the important thing to do is to create a balanced midfield. So if you have, for example, you look at what Napoli did when Jorginho was there were 3 different players in that midfield 3 first choice: Jorginho, Alan, and then Hamšík. And they all did different things, but they did complementary things. And it was predicated on the style that the team was trying to play. So you need to sort of construct your midfield, because it's the most important area of the pitch, because it's the bit that transitions from one to the other. You need to think about, how am I looking to do this? And what sort of balance do I want to achieve within that? It may be that you want 2 destroyers because you've got one player who's effectively playing as a 10 and pushing really, really high up, and everything comes down the flanks. It may be that you need a Jorginho. It may be that your deepest defender or your deepest midfielder is someone like a Lucas Tuchel, who has 2 much more progressive midfielders alongside him. So the deepest one is the destroying player. it just depends on what system you're seeking to put in.
Okay. Well, I hope you're happy with that, RC Chambers or R Chambers. I guess that's probably R Chambers, isn't it?
Probably.
Tom Wright. We've seen Dele Alli deployed as a second striker, central attacking midfielder and partner in a double pivot during his time at Spurs. Which position do you think provides the greatest benefit to the team based on his playing attributes and statistical analyses? In brackets, if you want any help with that. Key passes, dribbles, chances created, assists, goals, etc. Goals included there. Thank you, Tom Wright. Michael?
He's a funny player, Dele Alli, because I quite like him when he plays deep.
Is he injured? He wasn't in the team, was he?
I haven't seen the Spurs game.
Okay.
I don't think he played.
Didn't play?
No.
Okay.
I know,
probably
I'm
should have checked
watching
that before we started. And I've interrupted you, but do carry
Yeah,
on.
no, I'll watch that game tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, I think he's I really like him as a player, and I think he can. I've been impressed when he has played deep because I think he's got the intelligence to receive the ball. He's quite combative, I think he offers defensive protection, and I really like him in the opposition box as a kind of late running, almost goal poacher. The kind of goals he scores.
Yeah.
So you'd kind of think that because he can do those two things, that his natural position would be as a number 10, where he can do a little bit of both. But I think when he plays in that number 10 role, he kind of gets. I think he struggles to influence the game. I think he kind of gets squeezed out, whether it's about, not always finding the space or for whatever reason. I think he's better in either of the two roles. I prefer him either right up the pitch, just off Kane, or really deep. So yeah, he's an interesting player. I personally am not entirely sure which is his best position. But I think because he can do those two things, you've got options with him.
What was interesting about watching, I haven't seen it, but watching the Spurs game, and I think people picked up on this afterwards as well, was that they really didn't look like scoring or creating much before Eriksen was brought on. And I think many of the supporters afterwards, and this is one game, so it's very difficult to draw conclusions, but many of the supporters afterwards were thinking, thank God that he didn't actually leave. I mean, partly, of course, that will be due to Dele Alli's absence as well. But when you take Eriksen out of the team, and Dele Alli too, there really doesn't seem to be that much. I mean, also Son wasn't there. He's pretty tired probably from last season. But there really didn't seem to be that much going on.
Son was suspended.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. And
he's also tired, though.
He's also tired, but he'll get over that because he's suspended.
Yeah.
Ali's got a thigh injury.
Okay.
Come back in a couple of weeks' time,
right, okay.
According to Physio Room.
Right. What do you think, though? What's his natural position, do you think?
Well, it's interesting because if you compare his stats, I went onto Scout and had a look and divided it up by position, and you can see almost a statement of the obvious. You can see a good player who is good at different things depending on where he plays. It's not like there's a massive drop-off in how he affects the rest of the team based on whether he's deeper or further up the pitch. So I think, again, what you're looking at if you're Spurs is to say, well, here is someone who is very talented, who works well within our system and who understands it. Who else have we got that we're building around that? So, he makes fewer passes when he's further up the pitch, actually carries the ball less often when he's further up the pitch, which is quite interesting. But he is more penetrative and he's making these runs off the ball, which we've talked about before, is not something that gets captured in statistics. Goals and assists, the higher up the pitch he is, the more he contributes there. But then if you're looking at Spurs, you say, well, does Kane need somebody alongside him? How are we going to use Moura? How are we going to use Lamela? Is the midfield balance okay with Ndombele plus whoever goes alongside him? Where does Eriksen fit into that? And I think
Presumably that's part of it, isn't it? Because Lucas Moura really came into himself towards the end of last season.
Yeah.
And Son as well has been steadily improving over the last couple of years.
I think you sometimes see it with players, and we were talking outside earlier about Lingard, who again is a kind of a positionally flexible and an intelligent player in a similar sort of way to Dele Alli, that they can become crucial for a team because of that flexibility, but it sometimes means that it's hard to nail down where their actual best position is, and their best position is almost the position that serves the other interests of the team and where everybody else is going to fit in, rather than going, right, well, Dele Alli's brilliant at X, therefore we'll put him there, and then try and work out where everyone fits around him.
Yeah.
And I think that can sometimes be the downside of being such a flexible player, is that you sort of get pushed around a little bit.
Okay. The Tifo Football Podcast is supported by The Athletic. It's the best place to read about football online. Whether it is one of Michael Cox's articles, for example, the rule change. I forgot what the title was, but it's all about how you have the centre-backs in the they can receive the ball in the box from the goalkeeper now, and how it changes tactics, Michael.
Yeah, I think it was quite an interesting rule change. I mean, first of all, I don't think there was any. The rules for me serve no purpose. So it kind of makes sense. It kind of made sense back in the old days where it was before the back pass rule. So it was basically brought in to prevent cheating almost from back passes. So rather than you couldn't just tap the ball to a defender from a goal kick, he could give it back to you and you could pick it up and run to the edge of the box with it. But then once the back pass rule came in and you couldn't do that anyway, there was no need for the ball to have to leave the box.
Right.
So it was kind of just a correction, but I think it's quite interesting. I mean, obviously it means you can pass the ball to a defender who's inside your box. That's the basic thing. But I think
And the attackers can't come in, but they can presumably as soon as you pass the ball.
As soon as you pass the ball, yeah. So I just think it will make it really difficult to press because the attackers have to cover that. It's a big space, the penalty box, in terms of width as well as the 18 yards. And if you're having to press that space as well, I think it's going to mean more gaps in midfield, basically. Yeah. Because if you want your team to be compact, but if you're having to press that high and your defenders can't advance, in part because you can't be offside from a goal kick. Yeah. So City do the thing where they just arrow it forward from Edison. So the team's having to cover such a long space on the pitch that there's just going to be more gaps in midfield, I think. So I think we'll see... in the early days, I think we'll see goalkeepers playing it short, but I think also we'll see goalkeepers really pinging good 30, 40 yards balls to players who, then have more space than they have at any other point in the game. So it's quite a subtle thing, but I think it will.
It's amazing
change things.
I mean, I love whenever there's a slight change to the rules in football, what a massive difference it could make to how the game is played.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing.
So a good example of that, and this is quite a random thing, but, 3 years ago, they changed the rules so that the kind of double jeopardy thing. So if you're the last man, you don't get sent off.
Yeah.
If you concede a penalty, kind of thing.
That was a year ago, I think, wasn't it? Was it the beginning of last season?
No, 3 years ago.
Was it really 3?
Yeah.
Crikey, where's the time go?
And in that time, no goalkeeper in the I think I'm right to say no goalkeeper in the Premier League has been sent off.
Right.
And usually you'd have goalkeepers getting sent off was a fairly regular occurrence, but that hasn't happened in the 3 years.
Well, whether it's that, or it's dedicated local reporting about your team, or it's rich storytelling from around the world, you will find it all in one place. And you can get 50% off if you sign up before the end of August. That also includes a 30-day free trial. So do that. Go to www.tifo. No, don't go there. That's wrong. Don't do what I just said, because that's wrong. Go to www.theathletic.co.uk/Tifo and sign up there and read more of Michael's things because they're fascinating. Next question. Oh, goodness me. There's a bit of spray over there, is there? Next question is from Jordan Dennison. Jordan Dennison says, and I can't say this man's name. I thought I could, but the commentator said it very differently the other day. With João Cancelo? It's always what I thought it was. What do you think? Yeah, the commentator said something very different.
Which one did he say different? His surname or
the surname? He said João.
I thought it was just Cancelo.
It's one L. Yeah, well, anyway. João Cancelo joining City, the new fullback. Are they now assured of playing a 3-5-2 with Mendy on the other side and Walker at centre-back, or is this a signing Pep has made to add leverage to his love of rotation? Well, they didn't do that at the weekend, but that presumably is because Mendy is not available.
Would you like me to check? given that I've got the website out.
Well, yeah. Alex is checking, Michael.
Hold on.
Can you give us the correct answer?
Oh, go away.
Well, I guess there's an option.
He's out, yes.
He's out, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess there's an option.
He's been out quite a lot, though, hasn't he?
Yeah,
Mendy?
Since he signed. I mean, he was injured almost all his first year.
Yeah.
And second year was in and out. I think, Guardiola has expressed some concerns about his discipline,
But also, if you're Guardiola and you manage Manchester City with the access to funds available, why wouldn't you just buy another fullback anyway? If the one you have has potential discipline issues maybe and is unavailable through injury, just buy another one.
He's stockpiling them.
Win it now, and prevent the other clubs from having excellent fullbacks.
Yeah, I mean, they lost. Danilo departed when Cancelo came in, and I think he's basically an upgrade on Danilo more than anything else. But yeah, it's an option to play the 3-5-2. I must say, when they did it at the start of not last season, but the season before, I wasn't overwhelmingly convinced by it. I think it tends to be a formation. Well, more than anything else, I think you lack width high up the pitch when you play that, and that for me has been the defining feature of Guardiola's City with the front three.
Right.
So I guess it's an option, but I'm not sure that it's going to be the default system. But
what kind of changes would it make to the system generally? Because we tried to talk a lot about how, about the differences that formations make, but also they aren't the sort of, it's not the be all and end all of what happens on the pitch. They mostly look like that when they're defending, not when they're attacking. So how big a change, if City were to play like that, do you think we would see to their build up and the rest of it?
Well, I think it was. One of the key things that they've done is kind of combining in behind the opposition defence with the wide forwards, the De Bruyne or Silva pass to a wide forward and then square it across the box. So I think of that as the main feature of the team, so they wouldn't be doing that as much. I think the interesting thing that comes into it is it looks like Sané's going to be out for half the season or more. And I mean, he was really crucial in the way that they play. I know he was in and out of the side, but when he didn't play, Guardiola was keener to play Mendy, as if he needs some level of pace and directness down the left. So maybe that will mean we see Mendy more than Guardiola would have expected, and less of Zinchenko, who is more of a playmaker almost. So maybe that will convince him to play that way. But I don't think it will be, the question frames it as like that will be the default nailed on style. I'm not sure that will be the case.
What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, if you look at Guardiola at Bayern, he became less. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not flexible or adaptable, because that's the wrong way of putting it. He became less experimental almost.
Okay.
I think when he first got into Bayern, and now there are lots of players that he wouldn't necessarily have chosen, and he was trying different midfield balances and this, that and the other, and trying to work out what the best fit was. And as he passed through those 3 years, he seemed to be refining the system increasingly and settling more on a particular approach with a particular set of players as a kind of ideal scenario. And there were still changes now and again, because he does like to have the ability to make changes in response to certain match conditions. And I think we're probably more likely to see the use of a 3-5-2, for example, in a Champions League fixture where there's a particular kind of threat to counter. But I think if anything, actually, he's almost less likely to do that now that he's in his third season with City and kind of bedded in and really has a proper grip of the squad and what it's able to do. I agree with Michael in terms of so much of City's overall attacking style is to have kind of basically one of those two 10-8 midfielders sat back and then a line of slightly jagged line of four ahead of that, and it gives those options, and they're looking for width and then pulling back. And I think you're asking an awful lot of wing-backs to be able to get up and provide those same sort of what we call deep completed passes or crosses coming in from the side and then finding players in the box. So it strikes me that it's unlikely that they'll do that unless it's a very specific scenario. But then Guardiola, he does like to have that kind of flexibility in his squad and the ability to be able to mess things up every now and again. Sometimes actually to his own detriment, I think. I think occasionally he kind of almost gets that urge to just be a little bit more experimental than he needs to be.
Chiva Steel, what role does fashion play in tactical thinking? Many teams seem to imitate whoever wins the Champions League. Can you think of individualistic coaches winning the unfashionable formations and tactics? That's an interesting question, isn't it? I suppose that's true. We do seem to see trends, but are they trends for good reasons rather than is imitating, or is it trends?
There are fashions, there are certain styles that I think gain prominence, and probably the reason that Champions League teams are influential is because they're provably successful, and therefore you want to try and imitate them, although it hasn't really happened with Real Madrid because that, you know, they've done things in a different way. But if you look at the impact of Guardiola's Barcelona at the same time or just after the Spanish national side was playing that particular style, you did see the kind of the development of positional play and possession football in that style kind of proliferating. But my attitude is always that football it's a series of questions posed by one team that the other team tries to answer and vice versa. So I don't think there's anything necessarily about fashion in the sense that there will always be other coaches whose answer to... What?
Hats, maybe? Just trying to think of things that are related to fashion. Hats?
Right.
Capes, maybe?
No.
A cape?
There'll always be other managers whose answer to that question, because of the type of players that they have or because of their own coaching background or whatever, it is something which is unfashionable. Mm-hmm. So I think it's less about fashion and more about if you have a particular style that, because it's at a club that has a lot of really great players, and also I think if it's attractive, that's often something that gains currency. People will rush towards doing that, but then you'll see... I mean, it's an interesting point based on what you were saying about the changes in goal kick rules. You know, pressing has been very fashionable, and because it's provably successful and teams have integrated it to a greater or lesser degree, a lot of them. Will this change in the rule see a fullback so that there isn't quite as much pressing in the final third from those sort of scenarios? Teams will have to adapt, and that may change the fashion around that particular style. Whereas there are also other teams that don't press at all, and that's their kind of style, fashion. So
when I think of unfashionable football systems that are successful, I think
Sean
of Sean Dyche. Am I right, Michael Cox?
Yeah, I guess so. I think, they play in a slightly different way, obviously, but
or am I buying into the media narrative that they are different and that they're doing something harder, salt of the earth?
Well, I think that there are a lot of things to admire about the way that Burnley is set up. I mean, defensively, their record tends to be very good. I think there's been a slightly different strand of football strategy that has kind of run throughout the decades. I'd say that kind of really has been epitomised by Atletico Madrid and Diego Simeone, who has often used a 4-4-2, really compact 4-4-2, has not been interested in possession, but have been really, really well organised and good at pressing when they need to. And I think you can say a similar thing about Ranieri's Leicester, who played in that kind of style. And I think Dyche's sides are very, very well organised. And of course, that's not the fashionable way to play.
Why isn't it though? Is it because they can't be as good as the teams like at the very top level? Because, I mean, Diego Simeone is someone that we see linked with other jobs at the top level from time to time. Sean Dyche, though, is an example of someone who you feel like isn't going to be offered a job at one of the top 6 clubs, for example, whether that is because of the style of football that he plays or because of his type of character, for example, maybe bleeding into the idea of being fashionable or unfashionable. But do you think at the very very top level, a team that plays like a Guardiola team has more capacity to do more or reach greater heights? And that's a subjective thing, but reach greater heights than a Diego Simeone team, or is that just unfair and ridiculous?
I guess it's kind of true. I think with Dyche, the reason that he won't get a job with a top 6 team is he hasn't proven he can work with top players, and I think that is. There's question marks about whether that can work tactically, but also whether he can manage those players. But I mean, in terms of, to go back to the question, the one example of a real trend, I think, would be, when Antonio Conte came to England and after 5 games switched to 3 at the back. And I don't think I think maybe one side had played that. Was it Wigan who played that way the previous season? Can't remember. But there was one side who played...
Hull, I think, as well.
Oh, Hull, yeah. Yeah, sorry. Martinez had left Wigan. It was Hull. And then that proved just so popular. They won, 12 games in a row or whatever it was. And then there was a weekend in February, must have been 2017, where it'd been so popular that I think 13 of the 20 teams played a 3-man defence. And now, I think there'll be 2 or 3 teams who play that way. So that was a real sudden trend.
A flash in the pan.
Yeah, so you do get those kind of, brief trends, almost for the sake of trends, whereas, there are also some more kind of long-term logical shifts in strategy that do owe, something to
rule
logic,
changes maybe as well.
To rule changes, or improvements in fitness has certainly led to the rise of pressing, or just it's maybe not the case anymore. But the main thing that caused tactical change in the first 10, 15 years of the Premier League, I'd say, was just foreign players coming over and playing in a slightly different way, and people wanting to find their equivalents. So yeah, I think it's a fair question whether all the trends are kind of logical or whether they are just let's copy them because they're successful.
Yeah, I think that's true. And your Conte example again, three at the back has predominantly been popular in Italy and Germany, in quite different styles, albeit. But I think it's one of those things where a team sees something being successful because other teams aren't equipped to adjust to it immediately. Because, and particularly defensively, it probably takes quite a long time to adapt. I think it's also interesting in terms of looking at the players that you've got, and that football clubs will have a shift, particularly if there's a manager who's been there for a long time, where the manager starts coaching a particular kind of way, maybe because the players are a little bit limited, and then there's a slight expansion in that style, where particularly if you bring in like an attacking player who's got a bit more flair, and you get a kind of very gradual evolution. But Simeone's defensive principles are what they are, and if you get somebody of the quality of Griezmann before he left, you can then start to build in an attacking element to that. But the principles underlying, and it'll be interesting, for example, to see how Burnley bring McNeil in this season, who's kind of the only player that they've got who's flair in any particular way.
Yeah.
Will that mean that there's a change, or will the unit remain pretty much as it was and solid, and then he's the guy who gets to run around and do what he wants to do?
Yeah,
I hope so. I do like it when they run around.
Yeah, but it's like Leicester. When Leicester won the title, it was predicated very much on happening to have. I say happening to have like the result of astute recruitment, but having a couple of players that could do things exceptionally well, and the rest of the team being really quite kind of functional and set up to protect the rest of the pitch to allow those players to excel.
That's fascinating stuff. The next question comes from Morgan Moriarty. What sort of problems will the abnormal tactics of Sheffield United bring to the established Premier League teams next season? I suppose this is not that dissimilar to what we were saying. And what problems will the same tactics cause Sheffield against the top 8? Michael, will you explain to me what inverted centre-backs are? Because is it inverted overlapping centre-backs?
Yeah.
Because lots of people keep saying that at me, and I don't know what they mean.
I think a lot of the people who are saying it don't know what it means
Okay.
either.
we can have it cleared up for all of us. That'd be great. You look thrilled to talk about overlapping centre-backs.
It kind of does what it says on the tin, really. I mean, it was a tactic that came around because Chris Wilder found that it was, Sheffield United was struggling to break down deep defences, and his solution to that was to push one of the centre-backs forward. On the overlap, the wing-back would kind of drift inside, often end up in goal-scoring positions, and one of the centre-backs would get into a crossing position, which has worked well because they've got the players with the attributes to do it. I mean, O'Connell's got a good left foot, and Basham is very effective as well in the final third. So because it became successful, they kind of used it a little bit more in counter-attacking situations as a part of their general approach, and it has proved quite difficult to deal with. I mean, it was hugely successful in the Championship, and it sounds very risky defensively, but they had an excellent defensive record in the Championship. I think they conceded something like 15 or 20 goals fewer than Norwich.
Yeah, by far the best of the promoted sides.
Yeah. So
Norwich, not such a good watermark.
Yeah,
that's fair as well.
So yeah, I was at Bournemouth on Saturday to see how it worked in the Premier League. I think they played it a little bit more conservatively than before. Whether that will be whether they've reined it in because they're in the Premier League or whether it was the first day and they were a little bit nervous. But they did it a couple of times. O'Connell overlapped and they had a decent chance that went just wide of the far post midway through the first half. There were a couple of other moments where Basham went forward, but they reined it in a little bit. And I think that Wilder's, I think, a really astute manager. I mean, like really bright. And they've changed the system slightly. They were playing with a number 10 throughout pre-season, and for the Bournemouth game they played with one holding midfielder and two just ahead. So I thought they had some problems with the connection between midfield and attack, because they're used to playing with number 10. There were probably too many long balls, more than Wilder would have wanted, but they weren't really exposed by the overlapping centre backs thing. But it's interesting, it's a thing that obviously sometimes you do see centre backs going forward, but not with the level of it's just such a deliberate plan. It's not like we've just given you freedom to go forward when you want it. That is part of our tactics to get you guys in crossing positions. So I think it's really interesting.
Is it the sort of thing that could be applied to other teams, or as a tactic more generally to create overloads elsewhere? Or is it something, as you kind of hinted at, that maybe it's specific because they have Sheffield United have the personnel that can make that sort of system work?
Yeah, I mean,
could Guardiola pick it up, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, you need technically good defenders, and there's more technically good defenders in the Premier League than there's ever been. So it was quite interesting to see against Bournemouth, because so Eddie Howe played a 3-4-3 and kind of surprised Wilder with that. He was expecting him to play 4-4-2, and I think that was another reason why the centre-backs were reluctant to go forward. But on the other side, what it showed was Bournemouth had two really good wide centre-backs who were comfortable in possession. So Meffam, who I don't know much about, but I gather he's excellent at pushing forward on the ball, and he happened to score the opener, albeit from a set piece. And then you got Nathan Ake on the other side, who I think is brilliant and can, you can envisage him playing as a wing back. He could play wing back or centre back. So he's exactly the kind of player who could play that role. It does change things in terms of his central midfield. I mean, they've got to be really disciplined defensively and basically just stay in those positions. And indeed, Bournemouth have got those players. So you can see a side like Bournemouth maybe bring it in a little bit more. But yeah, you need players with quite specific attributes, I think. But yeah, of course, City, I mean, with Kyle Walker, he's the kind of player, again, who has played centre-back and wing-back. So you need players who can play both, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting... It's effectively, I think, a ploy that Sheffield United used really well, because the aim is something that other teams have solved in a different way, which is effectively to create a kind of triangle of passing options out wide to create space for either a cross that comes from the widest of those players or feeding the ball back inside. And Sheffield United love to play a kind of curved cross in from the right half space that the strikers then attack. And that was something that they did very, very regularly last season and very, very effectively, finding that little pocket of space. But you only find that pocket of space by creating it with an overload. And it's, I think what was interesting about it was that a lot of teams want to try and create those overloads in those spaces in order to generate a free man to deliver across. And Wilder's innovation was to use players that you would never really have expected to be the ones that are helping to generate that.
Right.
So I think, you can, I mean, Bournemouth is an interesting example, because I think those players would absolutely be able to do it. City could do it if Walker was playing as a right-sided centre-back. They probably don't actually have a left-sided centre-back at the moment who would be capable of doing that. And oh no, not again. I mean, maybe Mendy will play as a left-sided centre-back, and we'll see that. But I think
there's a loud drilling noise. Sorry about that.
Are we hearing it? But
we're nearly done.
I think it's again sort of not dissimilar to this thing that we were talking about in terms of trying to find ways to solve specific problems predicated on the players that you have available. And I think Wilder looked at the players that he had, and also looked at the fact that his wing backs were particularly good at driving, not dissimilar to Wolves' wing backs, actually, really good at driving inside and shooting and creating opportunities from a kind of an inverted fullback wing back position, and thought, let's see if it works, because he's got people that can do that. I think that's the crucial point.
All right, well, that's our 5 questions out. Michael, thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate it, and lending us your vast tactical knowledge. People should go and listen to you, read what you're writing at The Athletic, and also they should buy your books, shouldn't they, Michael? They should buy your books.
Yeah, if they want to do so. One's a kind of history of the Premier League, and one's about European football style.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think we've got one of them here. And if you are watching... Oh, look, it's next to Michael. What a lovely advert. You can hold that up for the camera there. The
Lovely
Mixer.
stuff.
Yeah, it's a good...
See what edition it is.
Oh, you haven't broken it. We've got to break the back to pretend that we've read it before he's come. But we haven't done that.
I look after my books, actually.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Barbaric to write in your books or tear the spines up.
I don't mind. Thank you again for coming in, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, it's the end of the podcast now. Thanks so much to everyone for listening. Thank you to Alex for attending.
Hey, that's what,
That's what you're employed to do.
in part, yes.
Thanks to Michael Cox for coming along. Very much appreciated. What a brain that man has. It's called a tactics mind. I think. Before we go, last week I told people to download the Matchpint app and join me in a league of prediction, which many of you did, thank you. There's still time to do it, by the way. It runs all season. You don't need to have started before the weekend, so if you haven't done, get involved now. I'm looking at it here. You can do that you can download it on iOS or on Android. Matchpint, incidentally, if you're in an area, you put in what game you want to see, and it tells you the closest and best pub to go and watch it in. And it's incredibly useful for people who either don't normally go to pubs or who are in a foreign city, for example. Foreign to them, i.e. Manchester from Liverpool. That's not foreign, is it? That's just
No, it's definitely not. Well,
That's
no,
just different.
Foreign can mean
unknown.
Unknown. Yeah.
Unknown.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point of this game is to predict various scores. And I thought I was nailed on. I didn't do very well. The app actually tells me, unlucky pal.
You've got an app throwing shade at you for not knowing anything about football.
Thanks, Matchpint. But loads of you joined the league, and I'm going to tell you what my scores were first. For Liverpool-Norwich, I predicted 3-1. It was 4-1. I thought, tell you what,
bad.
That's a good start to the weekend.
Auspicious.
I got 10 points for that.
Ooh.
For West Ham Man City, I predicted 2-0 Man City. Yeah, I still got 10 points because I got the result right, not the score.
Yeah. Well, you got one half of the score, right?
Tottenham Aston Villa, I predicted 2-1 Tottenham.
Right.
So at this point, I'm thinking, God, I've done pretty well here.
Yeah.
Newcastle Arsenal. For some reason, I thought Newcastle would win 2-1.
Oh, you're an idiot then.
And then I thought Man United Chelsea would be 1-1.
Right.
But I don't think anyone could have predicted
That's quite
that.
reasonable.
That's fine. And so in my league, where are we? We've got the Tifo League. Oh, I hope it's in the... oh, God, I'm 64th of 82 people.
Wow.
That's bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite bad.
Jordan F is number 1.
Go Jordan.
You got 2 perfect. You got 90 points. Mark H, Jack K, Harvey N, Tom A, all on 80. Oh, God, I'm so low down. Maybe you should do it. Do download it. My friend Pete works over there. I think it's really good. We love it. Also, we are doing a pub quiz. Did you know that?
I did, because we talked about organising it.
That's just how I start the adverts. All of the adverts we do for anything, I say something and then I say, did you know that?
Yeah.
And you say yes most of the time, because you did already know it.
Yeah.
But people listening, if you live in London, or indeed if you live in Azerbaijan and you want to go on holiday, for Monday the 16th of September, at the Old Red Lion Theatre, long-time listeners will know that that's where we spent time during the World Cup. It's a lovely pub in Angel Islington, North London, about 1 minute away from the Angel tube station.
Yeah.
It's a theatre as well, but there's no theatre on that night, which is why we're doing it. Downstairs in the pub. And I think we have... half the tickets have gone already, but I think we have 40 places available. And basically there will be a link in the description of this podcast on YouTube or wherever you've downloaded it. It will be on our website probably, and it will be on the Old Red Lion Theatre's website as well. Monday the 16th of September. Tickets are £2. The reason for that is the £2 entry fee per person will go towards the prize money. We're not making any money, unfortunately. And also, I don't want people to say that they're going to come and reserve spots and then not come. And also, I'm a bit worried that too many people might come. So that's why. But teams of 4 So if you can get together in teams of 4, go online and buy your £2 each ticket. Also, if you want to come on your own, do buy a ticket anyway, and then send me or Alex a tweet, and we will add you to a list of stragglers who we can gather together, a sort of crop of, we can develop new groups of people. Misfits, yeah. Right, anyway, we'll be talking about this more, but as I said, there are literally only 40 tickets available. So if you want to come,
you should say 40 tickets left, because it makes it sound like we're really popular already.
What do you mean?
Well, rather than 40 tickets available.
Oh, we are. I've already sold half of them.
I know, but that's what I mean. You should emphasise that to get a rush.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
There's only 40 tickets left of 60. So, that's how popular. It's about venue size and about its quality, not quantity, okay? But do come along and, try to get it in your groups. Teams of 4, absolute maximum. You can't have more than that because the tables won't accommodate more. That's why. But if you show up in a team of 5, one of you's getting cut loose to go and be with another team. So don't do that. But it's very strict, isn't it, this app? It's been very strict. Thank you for listening, watching, and participating. And we'll be back next week with something or other which resembles this. Goodbye.